that I was somebody.
Oh, you are so full of crap. You're 5 feet nothing, 100 and nothing, and you got hardly a speck of athletic ability. And you hung in with the best college football team in the land for 2 years. And you're also gonna walk out of here with a degree from the University of Notre Dame. In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself. And after what you've gone through, if you haven't done that by now...
The early 90s saw a surge of sports films. Some of these films included Rookie of the Year, The Sandlot, The Program, and there was even Blue Chips, which starred Shaquille O'Neal. However, none of these are looked back on as favorably as the film Rudy, a film based on the real-life story of Daniel Ruettiger, and while I'd love to do a fact versus fiction video or historical breakdown of the story, and I may do so one day, this video is designed to talk about why this film is so loved. It's the story of determination and a young man who, while likable, is also relatable. And the story that he has is in fact very much a relatable story. I mean, the story that's put to screen is the reason why it is that this film is still held in high regard. It's a true underdog story of a young man who wants to play for his favorite football team. He's a dreamer, and that dreamer ends up succeeding, which is rare but not impossible. And we do still like to see good old-fashioned underdog stories even in this day and age, especially when it's overcoming impossible odds. But it's really the journey that makes this film so enjoyable. Now, before we get started, you guys know me. I gotta lay out the structure of the video and how the video is going to go. So let me go ahead and start out by going ahead and let you know that there are going to be spoilers in this video. So if you've not seen this film, I advise you guys click off and go watch the film. Something else too, this is not going to be a historical video as in a historical breakdown of Daniel Ruettiger himself. I will be leaving links in the description box and the comment section, and I may revisit the topic at a later day when I create a sports channel where I talk about sports films just for good old-fashioned fun. So I may come back to this topic at a later day. But about the layout of the video. The first part will be a quick summary of the film and also some quick thoughts on Rudy initially as the story starts, and then of course we're going to talk about the gifts that Rudy has, and of course this also includes how it is that he won over everyone around him, as in like everybody he came in contact with, he found a way to somehow or another win them over. And then of course we're going to talk about the actual journey itself, and then the final part is going to talk about the real actual victory that Rudy got out of this, because even he could not see it until the very end. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Rudy. A summary of Rudy's plot would go something akin to a young man who has been a fan of a football team his entire life, decides to one day pursue his dreams of not only playing for said football team, this of course being Notre Dame, and of course the real life event, but after experiencing the loss of his best friend, pursues that dream through trial and tribulation in spite of his lack of size and athletic ability, along with his previous academic failings, which we see early in the film. Ultimately makes the team, gets a degree from what is one of the nation's most prestigious universities, but of course there's way more to it than that, and don't worry, you will see why it is that we love this film so much. So, who is Rudy? Well, Daniel Ruettiger, as portrayed in the film, is a tenacious young man who, after not making the high school football team his senior year, and as he is told in class by his teacher, is a bad student. And then, while trying to board the bus to go to Notre Dame for maybe potential future prospects, he is told by his minister this.
Rudy, you don't have the grades for Joliet Community, much less Notre Dame. The secret to happiness in this life is to be grateful for the gifts the good Lord has bestowed upon us. Rudy, not everyone is meant to go to college.
It's not something that you want to hear, especially from a man of faith, but Rudy does eventually find those gifts. Or you could say that he already had them. He's a hard worker, and what he lacks in ability and size, he makes up for in effort, which I think is the real key to this film and the key to this entire story. But after his best friend dies in an accident at work, Rudy, after the funeral, he sort of makes up his mind that he needs to go for his dream. And while it does seem foolhardy and there's a lot of obstacles in Rudy's way and a lot of things that are holding him back, he eventually gets to the campus and meets Father Kavanaugh, who seems a little bit indifferent to Rudy's goals. However, he does suggest to him another route. Go to Holy Cross Junior College and get your grades up so that way maybe someday you can transfer to Notre Dame, which of course this is where Rudy's journey takes off. However, it's also where he experiences his biggest setbacks. His two brothers, Frank in particular, is an absolute jerk to him, and Johnny, while not exactly a jerk, does pull a pretty daggone jerk move when he chooses to steal Rudy's ex-fiancée. Now, granted, I do not have the clip here. He found out at Christmas. His own father doesn't support him and doesn't even seem proud until Rudy gets into Notre Dame.
My son's going to Notre Dame.
All right, Rudy, way to go.
Hey, you guys! My son's going to Notre Dame!
However, this little bit seems to leave out a lot of the journey, so let's dive deeper into this journey. So Rudy, while at Holy Cross, he makes a friend, D-Bob, and in exchange for help with school, he figures he'd help Bob out with girls, or at least in getting girls. Rudy gets his tutoring, and while he gets his tutoring, he finds out that he's dyslexic, which of course may actually explain some of his school struggles, some of his academic problems from before. And while Rudy does make progress, he is ultimately rejected from Notre Dame on 3 separate occasions. You see this in montage form, and you also see how it is that Rudy is coping with everything that's going on. And of course, those montages include fall and wintertime, especially in northern Indiana, which is where most of this film is supposed to take place, and even parts of Illinois, because originally he's supposed to be from Joliet. And of course is the case in real life, because that's where the real Daniel Rudy Ruettiger was from. So Rudy puts up with all this. No support from his family, he has all kinds of stumbling blocks, of course the biggest one being his dyslexia. But of course he does make friends along the way and win people over. And speaking of that, let's get to his time at Notre Dame and how he would continue to win people over. And of course he does this starting with tryouts.
Football program in the country. NCAA regulations allow us to dress just 60 for home games, which means at least 35 scholarship players are going to be watching the games from the stands. So if any of you has any fantasies about running out of that stadium tunnel with your gold helmet shining in the sun, you best leave them right here. Of you 15 dreamers out there, maybe we'll keep 1 or 2.
Of course you see the montage from tryouts. However, there's a little thing that I had forgot to mention, so let's go back just a little bit. So from the very moment that Rudy decided to start this journey, he figured he was going to go balls to the wall, and the very first thing that he does is he decides to go visit with Coach Parseghian, basically telling him that I'm coming. He eventually volunteers to help with the team's ground crew, irritating Fortune, the man who brings him on, played by Charles S. Dutton. Bringing on may be a little bit of a, might not be the right phrase. I would say that what Charles S. Dutton does is just simply allow him to help. Of course, he's hired eventually, and Rudy's going to need that income, but still, Fortune, while not talked about a lot at this segment of the video, is very important in Rudy's overall development as a character, so we'll get to him momentarily. But back to tryouts. Rudy is at 110%. I mean, even to the point to where he initially alienates his teammates, but don't worry, we'll come to that here momentarily. The thing is this, Rudy puts out, he tries. He eventually makes the team's practice squad, and while it's not actually the team that's going to suit up for every game, he definitely makes an impression, and therefore he is allowed to be on the team. And his effort eventually wins over his fellow teammates, but like I said, he initially alienated them.
You sucker! Get back to the What's your problem, Harold? What's your problem? What's your problem?
Last practice of the season, and this asshole thinks it's the Super Bowl.
You just summed up your entire sorry career here in one sentence. If you had a tenth of the heart of Ruettiger, you could have made All-American.
And as you can see, Fortune is not the only one who had a good speech or a nice motivational moment for everyone. Just saying. In spite of everything, Rudy ultimately wins his team over. He wins his teammates over in a way to where they respect him, they admire him, and ultimately they end up fighting for him, but we'll get to that momentarily. However, Rudy does run into another stumbling block. Number one, his family does not actually believe that he is on the team, even as a practice squad member, because they can't see him at games. They doubt him even more, which is something that Rudy has to deal with. The insults, the doubt, the fact that they don't believe he can pull it off. He is, as I've said before, he is overcoming the odds or the impossible in his eyes. His determination, his grit eventually wins everybody over. But we haven't fully gotten there yet. However, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that Rudy has is the fact that Coach Parsegian, the coach who brought him on, he retires and the team is eventually taken over by Coach Devine. Devine, by the way, in real life had coached my Packers before taking the job at Notre Dame. Still, Coach Devine does not have a promise with Rudy because there is a scene where Coach Parsegian does promise Rudy to suit up for one game. Coach Devine has no promise of this at all, and yet, once again, it's another thing for Rudy to have to overcome.
Look, Rudy, the NCAA really hamstrings us with this 60 rule. In certain positions, we only have one backup. And you know every year we're competing for the national championship. Is this just for your father?
No, it's for everybody who told me that being a Notre Dame football player would be impossible.
Okay.
Okay?
You deserve it. You'll dress for one game next season.
Thank you, Coach.
Now, I know that there are a great deal of liberties that have been taken with this story, and don't worry, you guys, we'll get to that here shortly, but a lot of this, of course, this where it ends up resulting in Rudy ultimately quitting the team. Gave up, quit. My dream of playing at Notre Dame is over. However, it's something that Rudy cannot see. And while it may be in the back of his mind, it's there to remind him one more time of exactly what it is that he has overcome. So now we get back to that famous speech.
That I was somebody.
Oh, you are so full of crap. You're 5 feet nothing, 100 and nothing, and you got hardly a speck of athletic ability. And you hung in with the best college football team in the land for 2 years. And you're also gonna walk out of here with a degree from the University of Notre Dame. In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself. And after what you've gone through, if you haven't done that by now...
There is more from this speech that we will talk about later on in the video, but ultimately, if you know the story, you know the film, you know what happens. Eventually, the players, they decide to stand in solidarity with Rudy. They turn in their jerseys. Of course, this story is heavily disputed, but they turn in their jerseys in solidarity to get Rudy out on the playing field, or at least to suit up for one day. It's a national championship program, as Coach Parsegian had pointed out to Rudy, and it's kind of hard to get practice squad guys out there. Still, Rudy ultimately ends up suiting up, and he does at one point in time in the game, right there at the very end, does in fact play. I mean, it goes back to the whole Rudy chant, which of course is a very, very, let's just say, very heartwarming moment in this film.
Rudy, 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 Rudy,
And of course, there is more to it. Like I said, it's a feel-good story. It's a story where the underdog prevails. And we do have historical precedent for underdogs prevailing over the odds. I mean, go take a look at how many baseball teams that were not favored to win the World Series but actually did. Go take a look at how many teams have won the Super Bowl when they were not favored to do so. Go take a look at something like, say, Buster Douglas, who was not exactly favored to beat Mike Tyson, but he did. The fact of the matter is that in life, it's not that rare for underdogs to overcome. It seems rare, but it really isn't. Normally, if the underdog prevails, they prevail because they outworked the opposition. They outworked an overconfident opponent, or maybe an opponent that did not research them well, did not prepare for them well. And this does happen in life, especially in a world like today where things are becoming a little bit more nihilistic and hyperpolarized. And once again, while this film takes a lot of liberties with the real story, still it's not that uncommon for the underdog to prevail, to beat the odds. It does happen. It's your overall work ethic. If you can outwork somebody, you'll find out that you can still be very successful. Also, something else to go on top of that, it's also more rewarding and more satisfying to have beaten an opponent by just simply outworking them. However, that does bring me to Fortune and what it is that Rudy did not see. So let's get back to the other part of that speech.
Hell, I've seen too many games in the stadium.
I thought you said you never saw a game.
I've never seen a game from the stands.
Player?
I rode the bench for 2 years. Thought I wasn't being played because of my color. I got filled up with a lot of attitude. So I quit. Still not a week goes by, I don't regret it.
Now, I told you that there was a lot more to this speech, but let's go back to the relationship start between Rudy and Fortune. So, Fortune looks at Rudy as just another kid looking for a job, and he thinks that Rudy is insane, he's foolhardy. He even calls him crazy at one point in time. Still, there's also moments where you can see what Fortune was talking about in that speech. Fortune was a player. He never got to actually play. But he remembers the speeches, and he sees this in the locker room scene. That locker room scene where you actually get to see the glimpse in Fortune's eyes, where you can kind of know that there's something about this speech that still touches him even in his older age.
And we're not going to stop until we get across that goal line! This is the team they say is good. Well, I think we're better than them. They can't lick us. What do you say, man?
And that's another reason why, when Rudy does come into the game and records that sack at the very end, you see it in Fortune's reaction. It's almost like Rudy was getting that sack, not only for himself, but also for Fortune. It's easy for a man to show a lot of regret or live in regret. It's easy for a man to feel bitter. And in this moment, if there was any bitterness inside of Fortune, it's gone. Fortune is obviously happy for somebody, not himself. He's happy for another person, a person that he had initially dismissed as well. And that's kind of the point of the entire film. You saw a man get dismissed by everybody, friends, family, his fellow teammates, alienated them at one point in time. But he overcame the odds and he won these people's respect. And like I said before, it resonates for other reasons. For example, finding an alternative route to dealing with the setbacks or getting beyond them. He conquered all these setbacks and conquered the odds. And as said before, he did it with nothing more than good old-fashioned effort and determination, outworking everybody. And that's how Rudy was able to succeed and how he was able to garner everyone's respect. Going back to the original point, sometimes work ethic is for the most part all you need. And once again, look to actual real examples in the world of sports. Look to examples in your life when you had to overcome adversity. That's why this story is so relatable. That's why it touched people when it came out and why it still touches people to this day. It's why the film is so loved. Or it could also be Jerry Goldsmith's soundtrack, which is absolutely phenomenal, like every single one of his soundtracks are. But still, it's a great film. We love it. And these are the reasons why Rudy is still a beloved film to this day. And also, if you think about it, actually relevant. Now, real quick, if you stayed for the whole video, I want to say thank you guys for watching. If you can, please hit the like button on the way out. It does help with the algorithm. And please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on not only the film, but also to go on top of that, I would love to get you guys' thoughts, the video itself. Tell me what you think. And like I said, please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing. I'll see you guys later.